Not a ton to talk about other than happy to be back in the win column after the Iowa State game. Happy to be back home this week in preparation for a home game. It feels like it has been quite some time with the loss to SC and then the open date. It had felt like a long time since we had tasted a victory, and so that felt good. Really proud of the way that our defense has played the last 3 weeks. They're playing at a level that we can certainly win with. Continue to try to develop an identity offensively, which again has become increasingly difficult. Based on when you lose your two starting tackles and your starting tight end, it's difficult to find ways to run the football. And when a team, again, and hats off, I said it post game, a ton of credit to Matt Campbell and his defensive staff, and quite literally 2 years of breaking them down. Hadn't seen that front or coverage that they played pretty much the whole night against us, and so there was a lot of adjustment, and for an inexperienced offensive line, that's difficult, and for the tailbacks as well. So it's back to the drawing board a little bit, but I think there will be some carryover this week in terms of the run game, which will enhance the way that we go about doing things, because there is carryover and it's not a complete departure. I think those of you that were paying attention probably noticed quite a few differences in formations and run plays against Iowa State as compared to maybe the weeks prior, to try to get the best players in the right position to do their job in the run game. So we know we've got to be able to do that. We've got talented receivers, but when a team is dropping 8 guys into coverage every snap or almost every snap, it's very difficult to throw the football, and you got to be able to run it in those situations. And we did sporadically, but not consistently enough. Injury update: Connor Williams, after meeting with numerous different medical teams, is going to proceed with a non-surgical treatment of his medial collateral ligament. And we'll evaluate it again in 2 to 3 weeks, and hopefully this conservative approach, going without surgery, will heal him up the best for the long term, as well as allow him to get back into uniform here before season's end. So excited about that diagnosis. And then lastly, just about the opponent coming in this week. There's probably not a coach in our profession right now that is more well-respected than Bill Snyder. An unbelievable job in what he has done there, and it probably gets said every week of every year, but to take literally the worst college football team in the history of college football and turn it into what he has turned it into is remarkable. And this is going to be a physical game. That's their deal. It has been for a long time. And that is exciting, because that's kind of, a little bit what we like to think of ourselves too. And so we understand offensively, probably not going to get a lot of possessions. I think last year Texas only ran 66 plays against Kansas State, so they're going to chew up some clock on offense, try to possess the football, and play really sound, fundamental defense on that side of the ball. And obviously the guy that stands out is the quarterback, Ertz. Kind of a do-everything guy, can run it, can throw it, can get him out of bad plays, check him into good plays, improvise. He's a fantastic college football player. Questions?
Brian? No. Two things. One is, how serious is Shane's ankle? Is the boot more protective than anything else?
So Shane, yes, the boot is protective. So he went out yesterday in practice pretty big brace on. We didn't put him in any situations where there was a defense because still wasn't moving really well. So he'll wear the boot unless he's training or practicing or whatever. We're going to get a PRP shot in that ankle to try to increase the healing time on that. But, we think that he'll won't be 100%, but, quarterback with an ankle probably doesn't need to be 100% to be serviceable.
Bigger picture about the position. Both of these guys are 1-1 now. Shane he's conservative, but he protects the ball. Sam seems aggressive, but he's had turnovers too. How do you assess both of these guys, and are you still feeling good about Shane as your guy going into the next week? And
yeah. I mean, and I don't, Shane's thrown a couple picks and fumbled a couple times. We just happened to recover a couple of his fumbles too. So he's got some ball security issues too. That's one of the things that we've addressed offensively. We've got 8 turnovers in 4 games. That's an average of 2 a game. That's way too many. And thank God our defense is getting the ball as well. They're creating turnovers. And one thing that we are doing is we're scoring off of their turnovers gained, and they're holding opponents quite regularly when we do turn the ball over. So we're playing good team football as far as that's concerned. But in regard to the quarterbacks, do I feel good? I mean, we got to get better. I mean, Shane's got to get better. Sam's got to get better. We got to get better everywhere, especially on offense. And but we feel like you can win with either one of those guys at quarterback.
Are you right, Ricky?
You kind of touched on this a little bit in your opening statement, talking about teams dropping 8 back in coverage. But with Colin Johnson, do you have to almost say we're going to take X number of shots per game to this guy, regardless of what the defense is doing?
Well,
or is that too hard to do?
It's too hard to do. If a cloud corner that sits there and reroutes him at the line of scrimmage and a safety right over the top of him at 12 yards. We were running him on corner routes, and we were trying to find ways to get him. But to say we're going to throw the ball deep versus that coverage, it's an impossibility. But he does need to get some touches, and we were trying to manufacture him. Couldn't hit him a couple different times when we tried him. But I would imagine we're going to see more and more of that. So that's one of my projects this week is say let's figure out how to get him the football because he's got a unique skill set. We'll just move him around. Well, you don't just move around a 6'6", 215-pound receiver. You don't go put him in the slot. It's just not. And then they find him in there, and then they double him in there, and it's a fish out of water. You've got to create opportunities, whether it's when they are. Leaving him one-on-one, being able to recognize it prior to snapping the football and get you into a Colin Johnson play, if you will, something of that nature. We got to do a better job of getting him the football, but his skill set, it's a lot different than saying, hey, we got to get Reggie the ball. Great, motion him in the backfield, run him on some jet sweeps, throw him some bubbles, all that stuff, where Colin's area of expertise is go routes and post routes, and when you take that away, it's very difficult to manufacture than other ways to get him the ball.
Back middle, Steve.
Coach, you're an offensive guru, So when you look at the tape of the last couple games, what is it that you really like that this offense has been able to do? I mean, is there something that really stands out to you about improvement from game to game?
I think in the USC game, we took advantage of one-on-one matchups, and we made plays in the throw game. That for sure. I liked the schemes that we had for the Iowa State game, although a lot of that got thrown out of the window early. So I feel like we're headed down the right path in terms of personnel and formations. We got to do a much better job of coaching our guys how to adjust to different things that you don't plan for. So those are probably two of the biggest things. Is that And then third down, I think, on the season, which includes the first week, we're, at 47%, and on third and fourth down, like 49%. So we're staying on the field. I've never been a time of possession guy, but I look, and I think now 2 out of our 4 games, we've almost doubled our opponent's time of possession. And, so we're keeping our defense off the field, keeping them fresh. And we got a lot of work to do in the run game still.
Up front, Marlon.
And I was going to ask you about the run game, since offense is your wheelhouse. It doesn't seem like your running backs are making guys miss or shedding, a lot of tackles. I want to see what your observations on that is concerned, and do you maybe have to give a guy like Toneel maybe a little bit more of a look if you're needing somebody to be more dynamic, or even Daniel?
The answer is yes and yes. To your observation, we're not making very many people miss. If it's blocked for 4, we're going to make 4, and if it's blocked for 6, we're going to make 6. Where the great backs, if it's blocked for 4, they give you 8, and if it's blocked for 1, they give you 3 or 4. And so that's been addressed. I mean, it's not hit the panic button just yet, but, Chris and Kyle know that, everybody wants to throw, when you don't run the ball really well, everybody wants to throw the offensive line under the bus. But it's a collection of things. And, yeah, you'll see Toneel play more. He played more against Iowa State, and he'll play more this week too.
Up front on your right, Bob.
You mentioned the Thursday night, just the patience that is needed with the offensive game plan when things aren't going your way. You said being up in the booth, the difficulties of that. Does it become easier to make those adjustments and change game plan in game a little bit the more you're here? I mean, the longer you're in the program, does that make it easier to make some of those adjustments you need to make?
Hadn't thought about it, but yeah, we're still getting to know a lot of these players and what they can do, when the lights are on. And so I think that's, Cade Brewer's a prime example. That's a guy that every time we put him out there, he's done well. And so, hey, let's play him more. Well, he's a true freshman. I know. In overtime, in front of 95,000 people in the Coliseum against the number 4 ranked team in the country, down by 7, we had a true freshman throw into a true freshman for the game-tying touchdown. Not exactly where I would have hoped to be, but it's where we were, and those guys came through. And the more they come through, the more they're going to play. But I think it's not. I think it's more of knowing what our guys can do, and less staff things. Other than Tim Beck, I've worked with every one of the guys on the offensive staff, and Tim and I are very aligned in the things that we believe in. So communicating, adjusting, all that stuff is, from that standpoint, it's not very difficult. It's, okay, what can these guys do? What can we do to put ourselves in a more advantageous position?
Right, Dennis.
Kind of along those same lines with the line and with Beck out. So depleted there, can you keep the expectations for that unit the way they were, what you wanted to do with that unit, and how pleased are you with what Coach Wareheim's doing to make that work?
No, I think you got to change your expectations a little bit. Here's where there's a caveat to that, though. The caveat is if they're dropping 8 into coverage and clouding both corners and not supporting the run with their safeties and only playing a 3-man front, have to run the football. There's no other alternative. And so that was not disappointing, because we did it at times. 13 play 7.5-minute drive to end the game. I thought Tim and Derek did a great job, especially on the 2 third downs, calling quarterback draw, knowing that everybody was going to get, bail out of there, and we could run the quarterback up in there. And so I'm happy. There's nobody that's slept less and pulled more hair out than Derek Wareheim at this point. But everything that we're doing, or that he's doing, I'm in full agreement with, and we've got to do more of it in terms of the repetitions at practice, and we've got to oftentimes us being around each other for so long, I think there's a propensity on a day like today when you're game planning, you say, hey, great, Kansas State is 4 down quarters, they play one high man 20% of the time. Okay, well, shoot, we used to do this, and remember back in 2015 we did this, and and then all of a sudden you look up and you got 39 different run concepts up there, and that's not fair to the inexperience that we have at offensive line. So I think that's been the biggest thing is, hey, let's condense, let's make sure on Monday and Tuesday when we jog out on that practice field, our focus is very, very narrowed in the run game so that our guys can get good at coming off the ball.
The middle, Ed.
Coach, Bill Snyder celebrates his 78th birthday this Saturday. Do you picture yourself
On game day?
On game day, yeah. Do you picture
I need
yourself
it.
coaching?
Make sure I get him a card.
Do you picture yourself coaching for 36 more years as a head coach?
I don't. I've got, a 13-year-old daughter that hasn't seen her dad very much, 10-year-old son, and a almost 4-year-old son now that it'll be a while. Now to say 36 more years, no. But if all goes according to plan, we're going to be here quite some time. I would say 36 years might be a little bit long, though.
Thank you.
Rear on the left, Chip.
Tom, you said it, you're working with Beck for the first time. So when you're making adjustments on the fly, that's also for the first time. Can you take us through that, how that relationship is evolving, and how involved are you in terms of input and adjustments on the fly? And then can you give us a status report on the non-starters on the offensive line, guys who might be moving up? I know you mentioned Okafor on the call today.
Yeah,
Anderson's one of the other guys.
I think I didn't work with Major prior to Mage calling plays for me, and that was a very seamless transition, even when it came to adjustments. I think the biggest thing is as a head coach, you got to manage the game. So that's why I envy those guys that are head coaches and call plays. I don't know how they do it. They've got a different skill set than me, maybe, but I was always best calling plays from the box too. And there were times in my career when a head coach would ask me to be on the field, whether it be a quarterback needs me down there, or the offense needs me, and I was a fish out of water. And so the biggest thing that we're learning, when I say we, myself and Tim Beck, is I can give you some really good input if you give me great communication of what you're seeing up there, because I don't see the game really well down here, and I'm worried about getting the punt team on, and are we going to fake a punt, are we going to go for it on 4th down, I'm cheering up the defense, I'm doing all of this, and then it's hey, tell me what you see and I can help. And so that's where the very detailed communication of what's going on and what different down and distances it's going on, when it's occurring, and all of those things that I think has gone well. We could obviously still get better at it, but has gone well. And then, the Denzel Okafor has to play. And I mentioned on the call, that it has nothing to do with talent. It's a trust issue, and had some long, hard conversations with him and Coach Wareheim that we got to coach him to go to the right place with the right technique, with the right effort level, because he's a talented guy that we need on the field. And I think even a guy like JPE or Quidez, I think I'm saying that right, or Urquidez, is getting better week by week. Tope's not ready, but maybe by in a couple weeks or towards the end of the year he would be. And then we've got Terrell Cooney as a guy on the inside. The inside guys aren't playing awful right now. The outside guys aren't playing awful either, but I think the inside guys are fairly solidified. We need to find some more consistency at tackle.
Middle trend.
Coach, late in the third quarter, there was kind of some quirky plays that got negated that could have potentially flipped the game on its head. Just how composed did you feel your teams stayed in those moments, and how have they improved over the course of the season in staying composed?
Yeah, that's you put the ball on the ground on a kickoff return. On a kickoff return. You think about that sequence now. Our Ray Guy finalist punter has a 17-yard punt, which sets them up in scoring position. They score to make it 14-7. Kick it off. That kickoff, we fumble it. And again, the way we look at things around here, I don't care knee down or not. If the ball is out and you're not handing it to the official, then we consider that a fumble. We fumble that. That gets overturned, rightfully so. His knee was down by rule. And then, we throw the screen to Tennille, and it gets batted, and, there's no whistle. And, it's things we got to do a better job of reinforcing some things that you think are common sense, like, hey, if there's penetration on a reverse, don't pitch it. If the ball's on the ground on a bubble, don't assume that it was a forward pass, fall on it. And that's coaching. We've got to do a better job of reinforcing even the smallest of details that seem, or you could assume as a coach would be common knowledge, but that we've got to cover all of those things. And so, those plays could have been. I hate to say, well, you should have won or could have won, or it could have done this, could have done that. Who knows? Our team, our defense could have forced a turnover there, after the fumble kickoff or whatever. There's a lot of different outcomes, but to answer your poise question, I was really, really happy with kind of the composure, especially offensively, where, it could have been finger pointing, head hanging, moping around the whole nine, and they were ready to go back out there time and time again to move the football.
Over here on your left, Cedric.
Tom, have you ever been part of a team where the defense has been so much the dominant unit early in the season? And if so, when was it, and how did that season play out?
Our defense in 2015 at Houston was pretty dominant. We were producing more offensively than we had been here through the first 4 games, but we were pretty dominant. I would say, I don't know if it was dominant defense, but in 2012, our first year at Ohio State, we were not very good on offense. But we found ways to, mix and match parts, and took advantage of a down year in the Big Ten and went undefeated. But I think we were down to Miami of Ohio in the second quarter. We were only up by 2 against UAB in the third quarter, early in the season that year. But we got better. I think we beat Michigan State 17-16, that year.
Back right, Alex.
Coach, got a couple questions for you. First one, what's the biggest thing Chris Warren needs to improve on right now?
Making yards as he's getting tackled. We're still seeing some old habits kind of come back a little bit. Chris is running hard. Make no mistake about it. And Chris's desire, effort, his accountability to his teammates is phenomenal. It's just a technique and pad level deal that, again, we've talked about it before. If I'm a 6-foot man, it means I'm 2 yards long. And So every time I get tackled, if I'm getting tackled going forward, that means I'm going to gain about 1.5 yards or 2 yards getting tackled. And, you know, getting stood up or stood backwards or thrown sideways, that's a big difference. And it's pad level, it's lean, it's finish on the point of contact.
On the defensive side, your D's putting up incredible numbers, top 10 in the nation in interceptions. What's been the key to the secondary success?
The pressure on the quarterback. You know, a lot of those picks are thrown right at him. And so and I think most secondary coaches will tell you that. You know, you get good pressure on the quarterback and good things are going to happen in the back end.
Front, Anwar?
Still asking about your defense here, Coach.
Do you
seem to-
prefer Anwar as
Anwar.
opposed to Anwar?
Yes, I
Anwar.
pronounce it Anwar.
Gotcha.
Most people say yeah, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes.
You seem to have a lot of guys in your defense playing with bad intentions, as your phrase would be. When I look at the stats, you guys have only given up 14 third down conversions out of 53 tries. Everyone's 0 for 7 on fourth down against your defense. What's been the key for you guys to get some of these guys to play at a high level, and especially adjust after that Maryland game?
Belief. You know, the biggest, I think I told you guys, the biggest mantra that week, especially on defense, was just cut it loose. Don't evaluate. Don't worry about the call. Don't worry about is the back going to cut back? Is the quarterback going to dodge me this way? Just go. Just stick your foot in the ground and go as hard as you can go with your hair on fire, and trust and believe that the other 10 guys are doing the same thing right behind you. And then you can cut it loose and play with confidence. And I think, you know, I realize, you know, where San Jose State is in the pecking order of college football, but that to shut a team out that had been scoring, you know, a lot of points and yards and all that stuff, and really do it in a much different way than what you saw in week 1 in terms of flying around and hitting people and being physical and not evaluating, was a big step in the right direction. That, okay, we're going to take this belief, which we thought we had through 9 months of training, and you know, a lot of old habits, you know, reared their ugly head in that opening week. And but again, I think, you know, for the first time, our defensive players, rather than just say, or pointing fingers or say, well, this, you know, we're just not good, or lose confidence, they said, hey, let's try it this way. Let's try it this way. Let's give it a shot. And they came out like gangbusters against San Jose State. And when you, whatever it was, 170 yards total offense and 0 points, I don't care who you're playing, that's a pretty good day at the office. And they kind of realized, wow, this way it feels pretty good. And so then you show up at USC and you're able to do the same thing and have similar results against one of the best offenses in the country. Then it's like, okay, now we know. And I would imagine you'll continue to see them play that way.
Middle, Roger.
Tom, Jesse Ertz, you touched on him a little bit, but as a guy, when you watch him, you don't think he's going that fast, and he gets 8 yards, 10 yards, and then breaks one. What is it about him and that position? Because it seems like anybody that takes a snap at K-State kind of has that skill set.
Yeah, they recruit tough guys at that position, and they play tough guys at that position. And there's a lot of single wing principles to their offense, meaning the quarterback is the main ball carrier. I mean, there'll be times when the quarterback and a fullback are the only people in the backfield. There's not even a tailback in the backfield. And so I think his toughness is probably the biggest thing. And you know, when you're tough, you don't go down easy, and you turn what might be a 4 or 5 yard gain into a 12-yard gain, or you step through that last arm tackle and turn it into a 25-yard gain. But that's the thing to me that has stood out, you know, since I've been watching Coach Snyder's quarterbacks. They've all been tough dudes.
On your left.
Tom,
through 4 games, you've kind of seen 2 games with Armani at punt returner and 2 games with Reggie. What are your kind of feelings about that position and going forward? Who do you kind of see taking that position?
I hadn't talked about it yet with Craig, but Will, it's something that's on my list of things to talk to him about.
Tom, you took us through during the game the fact that you don't have time to call the plays. You have a lot of other duties. I was just walk us through a typical game week, though. How much time do you spend on the offense? Working with Tim on the offensive game plan. How does that break down?
Pretty much all of Monday except for from 11:30 to about 2:30 doing the conference call, this, and then the weekly rewind on Longhorn Network. So about 3 hours I have to leave the room, but from 7 a.m. to 11:30, and then from 2:30 to 9:30, 10 p.m. You want to have 90% of your first and second down game plan in when you walk out of the building on Monday. And then Tuesday morning we'll come back in, have slept on it, maybe jotted some notes down in bed or whatever, or as you're watching film on your iPad, lying in bed on a Monday night. And then so Tuesday morning will be what I like to call the cleanup of your first and second down game plan. And I'm in there the entire time, and then about 11:30, noon, we'll break for lunch. I go work out, and Tim scripts practice, and then we have practice. I take a bunch of notes in practice, or try to coach as much as I can on a Tuesday at practice, and then come in and watch the video of practice Tuesday night till about 10 p.m. We'll get done with watching practice, make the necessary corrections or deletions. A lot of the times it's, we only got one more day. Let's not invest in that anymore. We're not where we thought we'd be on certain play. And then Wednesday morning you get up 6:45, 7 a.m. and Coach Maringer will have already watched some third down and red zone, and he'll have some ideas. He'll present those ideas, and then Tim and I and the rest of the offensive staff will game plan third down and red zone, and that will be the heavy emphasis of practice on Wednesday, will be third down and red zone. And then Thursday there's really no game planning going on, just a cleanup day and kind of narrowing your focus. So other than the 3 hours on Monday, I'm in there.
Time for 2 last ones, Michael in the middle and then Chip.
Coach, even if you guys stick with Buechele as a starter, do you see yourself kind of setting up some packages for Ellinger in the offense, or will he be relocated to the bench?
I don't know. It's Ellinger, hard G. I don't know, because I've never been in a position where you only have 2 on scholarship. So that always makes me nervous when the only other one you got, you're going to throw him in there and run the risk of injury, and now you're down to 1. And so we'll continue to Gerard's package. We'll have and the reason you didn't see Gerard in the backfield at Iowa State, he required 19 stitches. He got stepped on in practice on Wednesday, and cut his hand all the way into the meat, I guess is the best way to put it. So I don't know. It's something that Tim and I talk about from time to time, and maybe as the season progresses, you're more apt to do that.
Last one on the left, Chip.
Tom, because a lot of the success you had the last 5 years on offense, you had a running quarterback. Do you need a running quarterback to make the running game go?
No, I wouldn't. I don't think JT Barrett's much better runner or faster or anything than Shane or Sam. We did all right with him and Cardell, and those. I think you need a guy that can improvise and make plays with his feet, but you don't need Braxton Miller or Greg Ward Jr. And as I've said before, I think it helps. As you saw, we converted a 3rd and short and a 4th and short running quarterback sweep, with Shane in there, and those always help because you add an extra blocker. But you don't need that kind of dynamic ability. You need a steady guy that's going to make a few yards when the yards present themselves.